3 samurai lay defeated in the training courtyard without a single wound on their bodies. Echizen Domain, spring of 1575. The clan elders stood on the wooden platform watching a scene that should have been impossible. The 3 samurai were alive, conscious, humiliated. Sitting in the dirt holding their dropped swords and standing over them was Kenta, a farmer's son, 17 years old. No samurai training, no noble blood, no right to be in this courtyard at all. Wearing simple peasant clothes, breathing hard but standing, he had just defeated 3 trained warriors using techniques that made no sense, movements that violated everything the elders understood about combat. One elder, a 60-year-old master named Takayoshi, spoke first, his voice carrying across the silent courtyard. "This is not possible. Farmers do not defeat samurai. Peasants do not move like that. What we just witnessed contradicts 40 years of my experience. Someone explain what happened before I assume I am losing my mind." Kenta, still catching his breath, looked up at the elders and said the words that would split the clan. "I did not defeat them with strength or speed. I defeated them with leverage, with understanding how bodies move, how balance works, how force can be redirected rather than resisted. My father taught me these principles working with oxen and heavy loads. I applied them to combat. What you saw was not samurai technique, it was farmer physics. And farmer physics works because bodies follow the same rules whether they are noble or common." The elders stared. Some looked intrigued, some looked offended, some looked confused, because Kenta had just suggested that peasant knowledge could be superior to samurai tradition. That farm work could teach combat principles that decades of martial training missed, that the hierarchy of skill did not follow the hierarchy of birth. And if that was true, if a farmer's son could defeat trained samurai through understanding principles rather than inheriting status, then every assumption about who could be a warrior and why samurai deserved their position needed to be reconsidered. And the clan was not ready for that reconsideration. But ready or not, Kenta had just proven something in front of 20 witnesses that could not be denied, could not be explained away, could only be examined, tested, and either accepted or rejected. And the choice the elders made in the next hour would determine whether this clan evolved or stagnated, whether they learned from a farmer's son or preserved comfortable lies about the source of martial skill. Before we continue, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button right now. We're pushing to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support makes all the difference. The story begins 3 years earlier, spring of 1572, in a farming village called Kasumi on the edge of the Echizen Domain. The village had 31 families, 208 people total. They grew rice, paid taxes to the local lord, lived quietly under the protection and control of the samurai class. It was a stable arrangement. Farmers farmed, samurai governed. Everyone knew their place. Kasumi was unremarkable, the kind of village that existed by the thousands across Japan during the Sengoku period, providing the agricultural foundation that supported the warrior class above them. Kenta was born in 1558, eldest son of a farmer named Jiro, a man who worked 20 acres of rice fields that belonged to Lord Matsumoto, the daimyo who controlled Echizen Domain. Jiro was a good farmer, understood soil, weather, crop rotation, but what made him exceptional was his understanding of leverage and mechanical advantage. He had learned through necessity. Farming required moving heavy objects, rice bales weighing 80 pounds, plows that needed to be positioned precisely, water gates that controlled irrigation. All of this required strength that Jiro did not naturally have. He was not a large man, not particularly muscular, so he had learned to use tools, levers, fulcrums, pulleys, ways to multiply his force through positioning and angles, and he taught these principles to Kenta from age 6. Strength is not about muscle. It is about understanding where to apply force. A small force applied at the right point with the right leverage can move objects that direct strength cannot budge. This is not magic. This is physics. And physics does not care if you are strong or weak. It only cares if you understand the rules. Kenta absorbed this teaching, spent his childhood helping his father, learning to move heavy objects through clever positioning rather than brute force by age 12. He could move rice bales that grown men struggled with, not because he was stronger, but because he positioned his body correctly, used his legs for power, used momentum rather than fighting against weight. His father's principles worked, provably measurably, every day, and Kenta began noticing that these principles applied to more than farming. They applied to everything that involved force and resistance, including the one area where force mattered most: combat. At 14, Kenta watched samurai patrol through Kasumi. 3 warriors on horseback, confident, armored. They stopped at the village well. One samurai dismounted, drew water, and while drinking, his sword slipped from his belt, fell to the ground. The samurai bent to pick it up, and Kenta noticed something. The samurai's balance shifted. His weight went forward. For a moment he was vulnerable, off balance, committed to one direction. And Kenta thought, if someone pushed him at that exact moment, from the right angle, the samurai would fall. The armor would make him top-heavy, slow to recover. The moment of vulnerability would extend. It was a pure leverage observation. No different from noticing that a tall rice bale was more likely to tip if pushed from the top rather than the base. But the realization was significant. Samurai were not invincible. They followed the same physical rules as everyone else. They could be off-balanced, redirected, controlled through leverage just like any other object or person. The only difference was that nobody tried. Nobody thought to apply farmer physics to samurai combat, because combat was supposed to be about strength, speed, training, skill, not about leverage and angles. Kenta began experimenting, not with actual combat. He had no opportunity for that. But with analysis, he watched people move, noticed when they were balanced, when they were not. What movements created vulnerability? What positions created strength? He practiced on his younger brothers gently, playfully, figured out how to make them fall or lose balance with minimal force. They thought it was a game Kenta was learning. By age 16, he had developed a rough framework, a set of principles about how to control another person's body through leverage, how to use their own force against them, how to make strength irrelevant by attacking balance rather than fighting strength directly. But he had never tested it against trained fighters, had never proven it worked against someone who knew how to fight. It remained theoretical, interesting but unproven, and it might have stayed theoretical forever except for the incident that forced him to either prove his theories or abandon them as fantasy. The incident came in summer of 1574. A samurai named Hideaki was assigned to Kasumi as a low-ranking administrator. His job was to collect taxes, maintain order, represent Lord Matsumoto's authority in the village. Hideaki was young, 23, from a minor samurai family, assigned to Kasumi because he was not skilled enough or connected enough for better positions. He resented this, took out his resentment on the villagers. He was not cruel by Sengoku standards, did not kill people casually, but he was arrogant, demanding, treated farmers like they were barely human. Kenta had several unpleasant interactions with him, requests for extra taxes, arbitrary rules, the usual petty tyranny of low-status samurai trying to feel important. Kenta tolerated it. Everyone tolerated it. That was how the system worked. Samurai had power. Farmers endured. The breaking point came when Hideaki decided he wanted Kenta's sister, Yuki, a girl of 15, to work in his household as a servant. The request was not technically illegal. Samurai could request service from peasant families, but everyone understood what household servant meant when a samurai requested a young girl. It meant exploitation, abuse, and the family had no legal recourse. Refusal would be insubordination, punishable by death or exile. Jiro, Kenta's father, tried to negotiate. Honored samurai. Yuki is needed here. She helps her mother, helps with the harvest. Could we provide a different service, labor, extra rice, something other than our daughter? Hideaki refused. I want the girl. She will report to my household tomorrow. If she does not come, I will consider it refusal of legitimate service, and refusal has consequences. Your family will pay extra taxes, double for the next year. You cannot afford that, so send the girl or face ruin. Choose now. Jiro had no choice. Double taxes meant starvation. The family could not survive that. He returned home, told Yuki she would have to go. Yuki cried. Their mother cried. Kenta felt something break inside him, felt the system's injustice become personal, immediate, unbearable, and he made a decision that was stupid, dangerous, probably suicidal, but felt necessary. I will challenge Hideaki. I will demand combat. If I win, he withdraws the service request. If I lose, he can kill me. But he leaves Yuki alone. His father was horrified. Kenta, you are not samurai. You cannot challenge a samurai to combat. He will just execute you for insolence. There are rules, and those rules do not protect us. Accept reality. We cannot fight this. Kenta knew his father was right about the rules, but he also knew something his father did not know. That he had a chance. A small chance. Not because he was stronger or faster than Hideaki, but because he understood leverage, and Hideaki did not. I am not challenging him to a duel. I am offering a demonstration. I will claim I have developed a new farming technique for moving heavy objects. I will invite him to observe. Make it seem like I am showing respect, seeking his approval. During the demonstration, I will engineer a situation where he attempts to move me, to prove farmers are weak. And when he tries, I will show him that leverage beats strength. If I do this publicly, if I humiliate him in front of other villagers, his pride will force him to challenge me. And once he challenges me, it becomes his choice, not mine. The clan cannot punish me for accepting a challenge issued by a samurai. The plan was elaborate, risky, full of assumptions about how Hideaki would react. But it was the only plan that did not involve surrendering Yuki. Kenta approached Hideaki the next day, bowed deeply. Honored samurai, I have been developing a new technique for moving rice bales. It uses positioning and leverage to move weight that normally requires 2 men. I would be honored if you would observe a demonstration. Perhaps you could even test it. Show the villagers that a samurai's strength is still superior even to clever techniques. The flattery worked. Hideaki agreed, curious to see what the farmer thought he had invented, and wanting an opportunity to demonstrate samurai superiority. The demonstration was held in the village square. 30 villagers gathered. Kenta showed his technique, moving rice bales using lever arms and fulcrums. It was impressive in a mundane way, showed clear mechanical advantage. Hideaki watched, then said what Kenta hoped he would say. This is a clever trick for weaklings, but raw samurai strength is still superior. I could move those bales faster without your levers. Kenta bowed. Of course, honored samurai. Your strength far exceeds mine. Perhaps you would demonstrate. Perhaps you would try to move me. I will resist with my leverage technique. You will overcome me with strength, and everyone will see that samurai power is absolute. It was bait, obvious bait, but Hideaki took it. His pride required demonstrating superiority. Stand there, brace yourself, use your farmer tricks. I will move you easily. Show everyone that techniques mean nothing against true strength. Kenta positioned himself, feet apart, knees bent, center of gravity low. Hideaki grabbed his shoulders, tried to push him backward. Kenta did not resist directly. Instead, he shifted his weight, angled his body, redirected Hideaki's force downward and to the side. Hideaki stumbled, pushed harder. Kenta used the increased force, pulled slightly while stepping aside. Hideaki's momentum carried him forward. Off balance, Kenta guided him past. Hideaki fell face first into the dirt. The villagers gasped. Hideaki stood up furious, humiliated. You tricked me. You moved when you should have stood still. That was not a test of strength. Kenta bowed. My apologies, honored samurai. I used the leverage technique I mentioned. Perhaps you would like to try again. I will explain what I did. You can prepare for it, see if samurai training can counter farmer physics. Hideaki made the mistake Kenta was counting on. He let rage override caution. I challenge you to combat. Real combat. You think your farmer tricks work in a fight. I will prove otherwise. If you refuse, I execute you for insulting a samurai. If you accept and lose, I execute you for losing. If you somehow win, I will withdraw my request for your sister and leave this village forever. Fight or die. Choose now. Kenta had maneuvered Hideaki into issuing the challenge publicly, witnessed by 30 villagers. Now it was official, samurai initiated, which meant the clan could not prevent it without admitting their samurai was wrong to challenge a peasant. Kenta bowed. I accept your challenge, honored samurai. The fight happened 3 days later, giving Hideaki time to prepare, to train, to convince himself he would easily defeat a farmer. giving Kenta time to refine his techniques, to practice movements, to commit to a strategy that would either save his sister or get him killed. The entire village knew about the challenge. Word had spread beyond Kasumi. Samurai from nearby posts came to watch, curious about the farmer who had accepted combat against a warrior. The consensus was that Kenta would die, that this was tragic but inevitable, that challenging samurai was always fatal for peasants, but at least he would die trying to protect his sister. That counted for something, gave him dignity even in foolishness. The fight was held in an open field outside the village. Lord Matsumoto sent an official observer, a senior samurai named Tadashi, to ensure the combat was conducted properly. To witness the result, Tadashi was skeptical about the whole affair. This is irregular. Samurai do not normally fight peasants in formal combat, but Hideaki issued the challenge publicly, so we must honor it. If the farmer somehow wins, the challenge terms hold. If Hideaki wins, as expected, the farmer dies and the matter is settled. Roughly 100 people gathered to watch. Villagers from Kasumi and nearby settlements, samurai from local posts, merchants passing through. It became an event, a spectacle. Everyone wanted to see the impossible farmer who thought he could fight. Hideaki arrived in full armor, sword drawn, confident. He had spent 3 days training, convinced himself that Kenta's trick in the village square was just luck, that real combat would be different, would favor the trained warrior. Kenta arrived wearing simple work clothes, no armor, no sword, carrying a wooden staff, his only weapon. Tadashi explained the rules. This is combat to submission or death. Hideaki has chosen lethal weapons. Kenta has chosen a staff. Both are acceptable. Fight until one cannot continue. Begins when I signal. Hideaki objected. He has no armor. This is not fair combat. Tadashi shrugged. He chose no armor. That is his decision. Perhaps he is foolish, or perhaps he believes he does not need it. We will see. Prepare yourselves. The signal was given. Hideaki charged, sword raised, expecting to end this quickly. Kenta did not run, did not try to block the sword with his staff. Instead, he moved laterally, used the staff to redirect Hideaki's sword arm, pushed it past his body rather than stopping it. Hideaki stumbled, his swing hitting air. Kenta was already repositioning, using footwork, staying just outside Hideaki's range, making him chase. Hideaki swung again. Kenta redirected again, this time hooking Hideaki's ankle with the staff's end, pulling slightly. Hideaki fell, rolled, stood up frustrated. Stop running. Fight like a man. Kenta did not respond, just watched, waited. Hideaki charged again, more carefully this time, shorter swings trying to corner Kenta, force him into a position where running was not possible. They exchanged several passes, Hideaki swinging, Kenta redirecting, neither landing serious strikes. The crowd watched in confusion. This was not what combat was supposed to look like. There was no clash of weapons, no display of strength, just Kenta avoiding while Hideaki chased. It looked less like a fight and more like a farmer herding a stubborn ox. And that comparison was more accurate than anyone realized, because that was exactly what Kenta was doing. He was herding Hideaki, directing his movements, controlling the engagement through positioning, waiting for the moment when Hideaki would be tired, frustrated, off balance enough for the technique Kenta had been preparing to use. That moment came in the 8th minute. Hideaki was breathing hard, armor was heavy. Chasing an unarmored opponent was exhausting. He charged once more, swung wildly. Kenta stepped inside the swing, too close for the sword to be effective, hooked Hideaki's leading leg with his staff, pulled while pushing Hideaki's shoulder with his free hand. The combination of pull and push created rotational force. Hideaki spun, lost balance, fell hard, his armor making the impact worse. Kenta moved quickly, placed his staff across Hideaki's throat, not pressing hard, just holding position. Yield, honored samurai. I do not want to kill you. I just want my sister left alone. Acknowledge defeat. Honor your challenge terms. Hideaki tried to rise, could not. His armor restricted movement. Kenta's leverage kept him pinned. He struggled for 30 seconds, finally gasped. I yield. The crowd was silent, shocked. What they had just witnessed violated their understanding of how the world worked. A farmer had defeated a samurai and witnessed combat, using techniques that looked nothing like traditional martial arts, using positioning and leverage rather than strength and skill. It was impossible, but they had all seen it, could not deny it. Tadashi, the official observer, stood up, walked to the center of the field, examined the situation. Hideaki was pinned, had yielded, the terms were clear. The farmer wins. Hideaki must honor the challenge terms, withdraw his request for service, leave Kasumi village. This is concluded. Hideaki stood up slowly, humiliated, furious, but bound by honor to accept the result. He left the field without speaking. Would leave Kasumi the next day and never return. His reputation destroyed by losing to a peasant. Kenta helped his father escort Yuki home. She was safe. The immediate crisis was resolved. But a larger crisis was just beginning, because word of the fight would reach Lord Matsumoto, would reach the clan elders, would force them to address a question they had never wanted to ask. If a farmer's son could defeat a trained samurai, what did that mean about samurai training? About the basis of the warrior class's authority? About whether combat skill was inherited or learned? About whether peasants could become warriors if taught the right principles? And that question was dangerous, revolutionary, potentially destructive to the entire social order of feudal Japan. Lord Matsumoto summoned Kenta to the domain capital 1 week after the fight. The summons was not optional. Refusing would be treason. Kenta traveled with his father, both nervous, uncertain whether this was recognition or punishment. They arrived at the castle, were escorted to the main audience hall. Lord Matsumoto sat on a raised platform, surrounded by his senior retainers, the clan elders, 20 men who had spent decades studying martial arts, strategy, governance. Kenta and his father knelt, waited. Lord Matsumoto spoke first. Kenta, son of Jiro, you defeated a samurai and witnessed combat. This is unusual, perhaps unprecedented. I am trying to understand what happened. Official reports say you use strange techniques, movements that do not resemble any martial art we know. Explain yourself. How did a farmer defeat a trained warrior? Kenta explained carefully, respectfully. My lord, I did not defeat Hideaki with superior combat skill. I defeated him with understanding of leverage, balance, how force can be redirected rather than resisted. My father taught me these principles for farm work. I applied them to combat. I observed that samurai training focuses on strength, speed, weapon skill. These are important, but they assume direct confrontation. My techniques avoid direct confrontation, use the opponent's force against them, make strength irrelevant. It is not magic. It is physics, and physics works regardless of whether you are samurai or peasant. The elders murmured. Some looked intrigued. Others looked skeptical. Takayoshi, the senior elder, spoke. You claim that peasant knowledge is superior to samurai training, that farm work teaches combat principles we have missed. This is a bold claim, possibly an insulting claim. What evidence do you have beyond one fight against one mediocre samurai? Kenta met his eyes. I have principles that work, that can be demonstrated, tested. If your best warriors try to apply their techniques against mine, and I defeat them using leverage while they use strength, that would be evidence. I am willing to be tested. If I fail, you can dismiss my techniques as luck. If I succeed, perhaps my principles have value worth studying. Lord Matsumoto considered, you are offering to fight my samurai, to prove your techniques work. This could be seen as arrogance or it could be seen as confidence. I am inclined to test you not to humiliate you, but to understand what you have discovered. If your techniques work, they could improve our training, make our warriors more effective. If your techniques fail, we learn nothing was missed. Either outcome provides information. I am authorizing a demonstration. Kenta will face 3 samurai in succession, not to the death, to submission only. The samurai will use training weapons. Kenta can use his staff. We will observe, we will learn. If Kenta defeats all 3, we will discuss what his techniques mean for this clan. Agreed. The 3 samurai were selected, all experienced, all skilled. None were elite masters, but all were competent warriors with years of training. The demonstration was held in the castle's training courtyard, the same courtyard described in the hook. 20 elders watched from the platform. Kenta faced the first samurai. a man named Yoshimoto, age 28, 10 years of training. Yoshimoto used a bakken, a wooden practice sword, attacked cautiously, testing Kenta's defenses. Kenta used the same approach as with Hideaki, avoided direct blocks, redirected strikes, controlled distance, waited for off-balance moments, found one, executed a throw similar to what he used on Hideaki. Yoshimoto went down, yielded after 15 seconds of being pinned, stood up confused. I do not understand what happened. I had advantage, was pressing attack, then suddenly I was falling. No moment of transition, just falling. The second samurai was Masaru, age 32, 14 years of training, more aggressive than Yoshimoto, tried to overwhelm Kenta with speed. Kenta used Masaru's speed against him, redirected a fast strike so that Masaru's momentum carried him past, off balance. Kenta swept Masaru's legs. Masaru fell hard. Kenta pinned him immediately. Masaru yielded, stood up angry but also impressed. You use our force, our speed, against us. The harder we push, the easier you throw us. This is backwards from everything we learn. The third samurai was Noboru, age 35, 17 years of training, the most experienced. He watched the first two fights, understood what Kenta was doing, adapted, used shorter movements, stayed balanced, did not overcommit, made himself harder to throw. The match lasted longer, 4 minutes. Kenta could not find easy openings, had to work harder, finally created an opening by feinting, making Noboru think he was moving left, then pivoting right when Noboru committed to defending left. The brief moment of confusion was enough. Kenta executed a wrist lock, controlled Noboru's sword arm, levered him to the ground. Noboru yielded, stood up shaking his head. You beat me by making me defend against a threat that did not exist, then attacking where I was not defending. That is strategy, not technique. You think 3 moves ahead while fighting, that is not normal. 3 samurai defeated, none wounded, all controlled through leverage and positioning rather than striking or cutting. The elders watched in silence, processing what they had seen. Finally, Takayoshi spoke. This is not luck. This is not accident. Kenta has discovered principles that we have not taught, or perhaps that we knew once and forgot. His techniques work because they exploit vulnerabilities in how we train. We teach strength and speed. He teaches leverage and timing. We teach direct confrontation. He teaches redirection. Both approaches work, but his approach works against ours because it is designed specifically to counter strength-based fighting. We are watching something significant. The question is what we do with this knowledge. The clan elders debated for 2 hours. Kenta and his father waited outside the chamber, nervous, uncertain whether recognition or punishment would follow. The debate was contentious, divided the elders into 3 groups. The first group, led by Takayoshi, argued for adoption. Kenta has shown us weaknesses in our training, has demonstrated principles that make samurai more effective. We should learn from him. Integrate his techniques into our curriculum. Improve our warriors. Strength is admitting when someone outside our class knows something valuable. Wisdom is learning from unexpected sources. The second group, led by a conservative elder named Hideyoshi, argued for rejection. Kenta's techniques work, I do not dispute that, but adopting them means admitting peasants can teach samurai, that farm work provides knowledge superior to martial training. This undermines our authority, makes our class less special. If peasants can learn to fight as well as samurai through physics rather than breeding and training, what justifies our status, our privileges? We cannot adopt these techniques without threatening the social order. The third group, smaller, argued for a middle position. We acknowledge Kenta's techniques work. We reward him, but we do not formally adopt his methods. We let individual samurai learn from him informally if they choose, but we do not make it official curriculum. This preserves flexibility without threatening hierarchy. Lord Matsumoto listened to all positions, made his decision. I am choosing adoption. We will integrate Kenta's principles into our training. He will be appointed as a combat instructor. He will teach leverage-based techniques to any samurai who wishes to learn. He will not replace traditional training. He will supplement it, give our warriors additional tools, additional approaches. This makes us stronger, not weaker. And regarding the social implications, I am not worried. Admitting that a farmer's son discovered valuable knowledge does not mean all peasants are warriors. It means this particular farmer's son is exceptional. Exceptions exist. We accommodate them without overthrowing general rules. Kenta will be given samurai status, adopted into a minor family. This legitimizes his position as instructor, allows him to teach without violating class boundaries. The system adapts, does not break. This is concluded. The decision was announced. Kenta was summoned back, informed that he would become a samurai, would teach combat principles, would receive stipend, housing in the castle town. His family would be elevated. His father would become a landowning farmer rather than a tenant. His sister would be protected from any future exploitation. It was comprehensive reward, life-changing for the entire family. But it came with conditions. You will teach, but you will not disparage traditional methods. You will frame your techniques as supplementary, not superior. You will respect the samurai who learn from you. Remember that you are teaching people who outrank you socially, even if you know things they do not. Humility is required. Arrogance will end this arrangement quickly. Kenta agreed, understood the political reality. He was being allowed into the warrior class, but on conditional terms. His knowledge was valuable enough to justify the exception, but not valuable enough to challenge the system. It was pragmatic compromise, better than he expected, more than his father had dared hope for. Kenta spent the next 23 years as a combat instructor in Echizen domain, teaching leverage-based fighting to samurai who wanted to learn. His classes were optional, controversial. Some samurai embraced his methods enthusiastically, recognized the value, integrated leverage techniques into their personal fighting styles. Others rejected his classes, considered them beneath their dignity, refused to learn from someone of peasant origin regardless of his adopted samurai status. The division persisted, never fully resolved, but over time, results spoke louder than prejudice. Samurai trained in Kenta's methods consistently performed better in competitions, in duels, in actual combat. The correlation was clear. His techniques worked, made warriors more versatile, more adaptable, able to defeat opponents who relied purely on strength and speed. By 1590, roughly 40% of Echizen samurai had taken at least basic training in leverage-based combat. The percentage was higher among younger samurai, lower among older traditional warriors. The generational divide was obvious. Old warriors clung to traditional methods. Young warriors embraced innovation, and Lord Matsumoto encouraged the trend. We are experimenting, seeing what works. If Kenta's methods prove valuable long-term, they will spread naturally. If they prove less valuable, they will fade. I am allowing the process to develop organically, not forcing adoption but not preventing it either. The techniques did spread beyond Echizen. Stories about the farmer who taught samurai reached other domains. Some sent representatives to observe Kenta's classes. Some invited him to demonstrate his methods. Within 10 years, versions of leverage-based fighting were being taught in 6 different domains. The techniques evolved, changed. Different instructors adapted them to their preferred styles. Kenta's original principles became foundation for multiple derivative systems. He was cited as the originator, but his methods were no longer purely his. They had been absorbed into broader martial arts evolution, and that absorption validated his core insight. That combat principles were universal, could be discovered through careful observation regardless of social class. That physics did not respect hierarchy, only understanding, and whoever understood leverage best would have advantage regardless of whether they learned it moving rice bales or practicing sword forms. Kenta died in 1598, age 40, of illness. Relatively young, but he had lived a full life. Transitioned from farmer to instructor, from peasant to adopted samurai, from nobody to someone whose name was known across multiple domains. He was buried in the samurai cemetery in Echizen Castle Town. His grave marker read, Kenta, combat instructor, originator of leverage methods. His students, numbering over 300 by that point, attended the funeral. Lord Matsumoto spoke. Kenta proved that knowledge can come from unexpected places, that innovation often comes from outside established systems, that the person we dismiss might be the person who teaches us what we most need to learn. He forced this clan to grow, to question assumptions, to admit that a farmer's son could see what 40 years of samurai training had missed. We are better for having learned from him, stronger for having adapted. His legacy is not just his techniques, but the reminder that wisdom is earned through understanding, not inherited through birth, and that the greatest threat to a clan is not external enemies, but internal rigidity that prevents learning from anyone who challenges our comfortable beliefs. The clan elders' initial reactions to Kenta's demonstration had been mixed: shock, skepticism, intrigue, resistance, but the dominant reaction, the one that mattered most, had been curiosity. Willingness to test, willingness to see if this farmer's son actually knew something valuable, and that curiosity, that willingness to examine rather than dismiss, had made all the difference. A more rigid clan would have executed Kenta for insolence, would have refused to watch him fight, would have rejected his techniques regardless of evidence. Ikizen chose differently, chose to test, chose to learn, chose to adapt, and that choice made Ikizen warriors more effective, made the domain more secure, validated the principle that survival required flexibility, that the clans which learned from unexpected teachers would outlast the clans that insisted only traditional knowledge mattered. And standing in that training courtyard watching 3 samurai sit defeated in the dirt, the elders had faced a choice: preserve comfortable hierarchy or pursue uncomfortable truth. They chose truth, chose effectiveness over tradition, chose to learn from a farmer's son, and that choice, more than any specific technique Kenta taught, was his real contribution. The proof that wisdom could flow upward, that peasants could teach nobles, that the person at the bottom might understand principles that the person at the top had never considered. And once you accepted that possibility, once you created space for knowledge to come from anywhere, you created the conditions for innovation, for adaptation, for the kind of institutional flexibility that turned good clans into great ones and allowed them to survive when rigid clans fell. 3 samurai lay defeated. What the clan elder said was, "Teach us." And in saying that, they chose evolution over stagnation, and evolution, in feudal Japan as everywhere, was the difference between surviving and being absorbed into history as another clan that could not adapt fast enough when the world demanded change.